Hi guys, Luke behind the camera here with Carl. What are we doing today?
We've got something a little bit different today. We've got an Edison profile. We are fortunate enough to have Edison locals twice a month, and this is the one that I took to win the most recent Edison locals that we have. It's a bit of a take on a classic.
What deck did you play?
I played Phoenician Cluster Amaryllis Quickdraw deck. It's more like a plant Quickdraw, but more leaning into the plants.
Let's have a look at this then.
So, as part of the name, we've got the three clusters. Just a quick background on what this does. If it's in the graveyard and you have a plant, you can banish a plant to summon it from the grave in defense. If it attacks, it kills itself, and when it's destroyed from the field and sent to grave, it burns for 800. So really good for picking up quite a bit of chip damage over time, but also really quite a big body on the field unless they clear it, but then they're taking the burn damage.
It's really good with Titanial as well, right?
It is, yeah. So we also have the three of those as well. I mean, most Quickdraw decks used to only play one Titanial. With the increased plant count, wanted to bump this up a bit as well, also playing cards like Trade-In, because both this and the Amaryllis are level 8s. But obviously bringing back to the Amaryllis there gives you an extra tribute for the Titanial. You won't get the burn off of it, but obviously keeping the Titanial around instead of tributing this off is really huge. And to pair with those, obviously we've got the Lone Fires, summon out the Titanial from deck, also fills the grave with plants for the Amaryllis. And the Dandies as well, as is standard in Quickdraw decks. So they're like the main core of the plants. We're also playing three Graveros. So what this does is to keep it alive, as with most Quackimaros, you need to reveal a plant or Iron Core. Not playing Iron Core, just the plants for this. However, in the standby phase, if this is stuck around, you get to dump a level 3 from your deck. So it's really good for dumping things like Dandy if you have a Quickdraw in hand, or also for dumping Plague to make Synchro 6s. To keep up with the plants, we've also got some Mystic Tomatoes. Tutors out some other cards in the deck, which I'll get onto in a second, but also obviously filling the grave with plants is really good. And some of the targets we have the tomato is Violet Witch. Now this itself isn't a plant, but when it dies it's sort of like Witch of the Forest. It searches for a plant monster with 1500 or less defense, so it's good for getting out the Amaryllises if you have Trade-In or Quickdraw in hand, or for also getting into things like Dandelion or Lone Fire. Also playing the one-off Sangan, because again it's a target for your Mystic Tomato, also searches out a similar amount of cards. And as mentioned, the Plague as well, really good for the Graveros, dumping that and making 6s with it. It is a Quickdraw deck, so playing the 3-off Quickdraws, really good for making Drill Warrior, Nitro and Turbo Warrior as well for outing Stardusts. Really strong. Obviously adding back Lone Fire in this deck is much better with Drill Warrior, as you get to summon out Titanials with it. Also playing 3 Raikou, we want to be milling plants to fill up our Amaryllis, and also the Card Trooper, so both of these getting cards in grave really quick, and also obviously the Raikou for popping some problem cards. Back row can be an issue for this, so getting rid of things that way is really nice. And then onto the spells, just move those out of the way for a sec. We have, as mentioned, the Trade-Ins. I did originally play 3 of this when I played this deck before, however I found that I was clogging on this a bit too much, so having this and obviously being able to use Violet Witch to search out the Amaryllis to pitch with it was really nice. Didn't find that I clogged on this today as much. Also have the 2 DDRs, with Amaryllis being able to banish things like Titanial. This bringing back Titanial was really strong. You do sometimes just end up in games where you're playing Titanial control, but that's completely fine. It's 2/8 stick. It also can protect itself. 1 charge for the Raikous, and then sort of the staples of Edison format, the 1 heavy, the 1 Mystic Space Typhoon. Also playing Foolish for things like Plague and for the Dandelion, and a Burial as well. Burial was really good for getting back Plague, but also getting back banished Amaryllises from DD Crow, and also getting back the food for Amaryllis as well. And that was the spell lineup. And then a nice small trap lineup here. We've got the Wing Blast, again another discard outlet for the Amaryllises that can get stuck in your hand. TT, really strong board wipe, can often struggle with big boards with this deck, so being able to blow them out that way is really nice. Same goes for the Mirror Force there. Judgment I think is really strong in a deck like this that sort of loses to big monsters. Like Caius can really ruin your day with this deck, so having some of that Judgment for that. And Dust Shoot, the god card of the format. Not really much explanation there. So 40 card deck, and that was the main. And then we'll just go on to the extra deck next. So we've got Synchro 5s, Don't make these too much, but you can make them with things like Sangan and Plague Spreader to get your Sangan search. The main important ones though are the 6s that you're using with Plague and obviously things like Graveros. But also obviously with the Dandy token and Quickdraw, making into Drill Warrior, again mentioned before, really good adding back Lone Fires in this deck. Turbo Warrior as well, again is a nice out for Stardust if that gets summoned against you. Drill Warrior is not quite big enough. Another thing to mention as well with Drill Warrior, halving it so it can go direct for 12. Really good in conjunction with the burn that you get from Amaryllis, so you can sort of game shot people that way. And then the really good 6s of the format, got Yugioh and Brio, don't really need any explanation there. And a card that I decided to play because we were playing Graveros was Queen of Thorns. So what this does is each player must pay a K to summon a monster, whether it's normal or special, from their hand except plants. So you can obviously put this up on the field and lock people out of summoning if their life points are too low. And again, does extra burn damage with the Amaryllises. So that was all the 6s. Also playing Nitro Warrior, so you can use this with Quickdraw and your Raikou. Again, beats over Stardust, but also can deal quite a lot of damage if you're swinging over defense position monsters with it with the second effect. And then the other 7s, we've just got Black Rose and Ancient Fairy. Never summoned these, but in theory a 3k wall's big, and obviously this out's board. And then for the 8s that you can use with Plague and a Drill Warrior, for example, just got the best 3 of the format, I think. Stardust needs no explanation. This is good if you want to play through things like D-Barrier or, not D-Barrier, sorry, wrong format. D-Prison, yeah, or Enemy Controller, things like that, because you can just negate them with this. And obviously Red Dragon Archfiend being 3k and outing a load of defense position monsters is good. And then just the Chimera tech because I'm siding Cyber Dragons.
Onto the side then?
Yeah, so this is a little bit catered for our locals just because, you know, sort of play to the format, play to the room. However, Gauze and Trag I think would still make the deck in, even if you're playing this at a different event. Just because you don't have a lot of back row, you often have to rely on things like these battle traps to keep yourself alive against the decks that's super aggressive. So those. Cyber Dragon, obviously really good going second, but also makes the Chimera tech worth playing into machine decks. And then cards that deal with back row, we've got 2 Raw Decree and 2 Dust Tornado. Didn't want to clog on any of these, so I just put in these. The Raw Decree was really good against things like Gladiator Beasts that set a load of back row. Also pretty good into Blackwings for turning off Icaruses, and same goes for the Dust Tornadoes, even into less back rowy decks. And then more for the people that are playing there. The Mask Restricts were really good into things like the Frog Monarch deck. Got the Shadow Mirrors for people playing things like Zombie or Blackwing or Vayu Turbo. And then the last card in the side that I just wanted to sort of try, instead of playing Crow, was Fiend Comedian. So this sort of doubles up utility of either banishing their graveyard or milling from yours, both of which outcomes are really good. Obviously filling up plant food and putting more Amaryllises in grave was really good to play through Crow. But also hitting them, if you're playing against things that use like Machina Fortress, for example, or Vayu, you get to banish their entire grave out, which was good. And that was the deck.
Any shout-outs?
Yeah, I'd like to shout out Luke for helping me put this deck together and for also providing a lot of the cards that were in here. Didn't have any Amaryllises and didn't fancy spending the money on them. But I would recommend picking them up for this really good fun deck. And also a massive shout out to our new sponsor, Spark Card Gaming. They've been a big help to us over the recent few weeks, and you should definitely go and check out their store. The link will be in the description as well. And when you do, use the code SHIFT5 at the checkout for 5% off.
Thanks, guys.
Cheers.
Bye.